11. Real lesbian Hollywood couples and their surprising look. Hollywood taught us to recognize faces, not truths. For decades, black women built legendary careers while being told that loving openly could cost them everything: roles, respect, and relevance. Yet behind the spotlight, real relationships existed not as scandals, but as acts of quiet courage. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 11 real black lesbian Hollywood couples whose lives defied the images we were sold. Their love stories weren't designed for headlines, they were designed to survive. If you value truth over rumor and legacy over gossip, subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence, like this video, and stay with us until the end, because some of the most powerful stories were never meant to be loud. Lena Waithe and Alana Mayo. Lena Waithe and Alana Mayo emerged as one of the most intellectually influential lesbian couples in modern Hollywood. Not because they dominated headlines, but because they operated where real power often lives behind the camera. Waithe, raised on Chicago's South Side, steadily built a career grounded in authenticity and cultural precision. Her breakthrough arrived with Master of None, where her semi-autobiographical Thanksgiving episode earned her an Emmy Award in 2017, making her the first black woman to win for comedy writing. Rather than leaning into celebrity spectacle, Waithe used that moment to expand her influence as a creator, producer, and cultural voice, shaping stories about black identity, queerness, and everyday truth. Alana Mayo's rise followed a different but equally consequential path. Working largely out of public view, Mayo became a respected development executive, known for identifying projects that centered underrepresented voices before diversity became an industry buzzword. Her leadership roles, including senior creative positions and later work with Waithe's production company, placed her in rooms where decisions were made, not debated. Together, they represented a rare alignment, a writer-producer in front of culture, and an executive guiding it from within. Their relationship began quietly in the early 2010s, evolving alongside their professional momentum. In 2019, they married without press campaigns or staged exclusives, a choice that reflected their shared belief that love did not require public validation. At the height of their careers, they embodied a new model of visibility, present unapologetic, yet controlled on their own terms. Do you think privacy in Hollywood is a form of power or a missed opportunity for representation? That same intentionality defined how their marriage ended. In 2020, they announced their separation, followed by a finalized divorce in 2021. There were no public accusations, no narrative battles, and no reputational damage, an outcome still rare in an industry conditioned to monetize personal collapse. Instead, both women continued working independently, their professional trajectories uninterrupted. What makes Lena Waithe and Alana Mayo's story compelling is not longevity or drama, but restraint. They showed that a black lesbian relationship could exist at the highest levels of Hollywood without becoming a spectacle or a symbol reduced for consumption. Their partnership marked a moment when creative authority, emotional maturity, and cultural impact aligned quietly, rewriting expectations about what real love looks like when it refuses to perform. Wanda Sykes and Alex Sykes. Wanda Sykes and Alex Sykes represent one of the most culturally significant lesbian partnerships in Hollywood, not because their love story followed an easy path, but because it unfolded in direct opposition to long-standing industry fears. Wanda Sykes built her reputation as one of America's sharpest comedic minds long before she ever discussed her personal life publicly. By the mid-2000s, she had already earned an Emmy, established herself as a fearless political satirist, and become a regular presence in television, film, and stand-up comedy. Yet behind that success, she was still navigating private truths in an era when being openly gay, especially as a black woman, was often framed as a career risk. Alex Sykes entered Wanda's life far from Hollywood stages or red carpets. Born in France and trained in business, Alex was never seeking fame, which immediately set their relationship apart. They met in 2006 on a ferry to Fire Island, a moment Wanda has described as quietly transformative. At the time, Wanda was still married to a man, and nothing about the encounter suggested headlines or public declarations. Instead, their bond developed gradually rooted in compatibility, humor, and emotional grounding, rather than celebrity attraction. In 2008, the couple married privately, months before Wanda publicly came out. That public moment arrived not through entertainment media, but at a same-sex marriage rally where Wanda openly criticized California's Proposition 8. The timing was deliberate and courageous. She later acknowledged that her decision created immediate strain within her family, including her parents initially refusing to attend the wedding. Their resilience was tested again as they built a family. In 2009, Alex gave birth to fraternal twins Olivia and Lucas. Parenthood shifted Wanda's perspective, and rather than retreating from public life, her career expanded. She continued headlining tours, voicing animated films, writing best-selling books, and starring in successful series, all while openly referencing her wife and children in her comedy. The feared professional backlash never arrived. Over time, even Wanda's family came to embrace the marriage, a transformation she credits largely to Alex's patience and stability. Alex remained intentionally outside the spotlight, choosing family life over media attention, while Wanda became one of the most visible Black lesbian figures in American entertainment. What makes their story enduring is not just representation, but outcome. Wanda Sykes did not lose her audience, her credibility, or her influence by telling the truth. Together, Wanda and Alex proved that honesty, when paired with talent and consistency, doesn't end careers, it redefines them. Raven-Symoné and Miranda Pierman-Mayday. Raven-Symoné and Miranda Pierman-Mayday form one of the most quietly transformative couples in modern Hollywood, precisely because their love story unfolded after the spotlight had already defined expectations. Raven's career began before most people discover who they are. By age 3, she was on The Cosby Show, later becoming a generational icon through That's So Raven, which ran from 2003 to 2007 and made her one of Disney Channel's most recognizable stars. For decades, audiences believed they knew her, yet her private life remained carefully guarded, shaped by the pressures placed on child stars, Black women, and queer performers all at once. Miranda Pierman-Mayday entered Raven's life from a different direction entirely. Working primarily behind the scenes as a social media manager and digital creative, Miranda was never chasing fame. Her professional focus centered on strategy, storytelling, and balance qualities that would later become central to their partnership. The two met in 2015 at a karaoke night in West Hollywood, a casual, unpublicized setting that contrasted sharply with Raven's highly curated public history. What began as friendship evolved into a relationship grounded in emotional safety rather than performance. For years, they kept their bond largely private. Raven, who had previously spoken about resisting labels, chose growth over explanation. That decision surprised longtime fans when in June 2020, the couple announced they had married. The ceremony took place during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, held intimately in the backyard of Debbie Allen's home with no celebrity spectacle or promotional rollout. Do you think growing up famous makes it harder to trust love or easier to recognize what truly matters? Marriage marked a turning point for Raven, not as a reinvention, but as a settling into authenticity. In interviews and social media moments that followed, she spoke openly about therapy, mental health, and unlearning survival habits formed during early fame. Miranda's influence appeared not through grand statements, but through consistency, encouraging routine, stability, and boundaries between public and private life. Professionally, Raven continued expanding her footprint as an actress, producer, and talk show presence, while Miranda remained largely off-camera, supporting rather than competing with that visibility. Together, they launched joint digital content that emphasized wellness, humor, and honest conversation, resonating strongly with audiences who had grown up alongside Raven. What makes Raven Simonet and Miranda Pierman-Madey's relationship surprising isn't its existence, it's its timing. Their story reminds viewers that self-knowledge doesn't arrive on schedule, and love doesn't owe the public an origin story. Sometimes the most radical transformation happens after the cameras stop watching. Niecy Nash and Jessica Betts. Niecy Nash and Jessica Betts became one of the most discussed lesbian couples in Hollywood. Not because they sought attention, but because their union challenged deeply ingrained assumptions about identity, timing, and reinvention. For more than 2 decades, Niecy Nash built a public image rooted in familiarity and warmth. Audiences knew her from Reno 911 2003 to 2009, where her comedic instincts stood out, and later from dramatic award-winning work in When They See Us 2019, which earned her a Primetime Emmy Award. Throughout that rise, Nash's personal life appeared conventional. By Hollywood standards, she had been married twice to men and was raising children while steadily expanding her career. Jessica Betts entered the picture from an entirely different lane. A singer-songwriter with a soulful, gospel-influenced sound, Betts first gained national recognition after winning The Road to Stardom with Missy Elliott in 2005. Her career unfolded largely outside mainstream celebrity culture, built on music faith and independence rather than red carpet visibility. The two women met in 2015 when Betts appeared as a musical guest on the set of Claws the TNT drama. Nash later headlined from 2017 to 2022. At the time, their connection was platonic, anchored in conversation, mutual respect, and shared values. That friendship deepened during a period of personal transition for Nash. After separating from her second husband, she began reassessing long-held assumptions about herself, her happiness, and the expectations she had absorbed over a lifetime. In August 2020, the public learned just how profound that reassessment had been. Nash and Betts announced they had married in an intimate backyard ceremony. The revelation sparked widespread conversation not only because it was unexpected, but because of how Nash framed it. She famously stated, "I didn't come out, I went into myself." The impact was immediate and cultural. Rather than facing backlash, Nash experienced a career surge. She continued leading major television projects, hosting award shows, and receiving accolades proving that honesty did not limit her reach. Betts, meanwhile, stepped more confidently into public view, sharing music and moments of their marriage without turning it into spectacle. What makes Niecy Nash and Jessica Betts' story resonate is its clarity. Their relationship did not rewrite the past, it reframed it. Together, they showed that identity is not a fixed destination, but an evolving truth, and that sometimes the most surprising love story is the one that arrives exactly when you stop pretending to be anyone else. Robin Roberts and Amber Lane. Robin Roberts and Amber Lane represent one of the most enduring and emotionally grounded relationships in modern American media, a partnership defined not by spectacle, but by loyalty under pressure. Roberts, a trailblazing journalist and longtime anchor of Good Morning America, spent decades in the public eye before ever sharing details of her personal life. By the early 2000s, she had already become one of the most trusted faces in television news, known for her calm authority, professionalism, and resilience, shaped by her early career as a sports broadcaster at ESPN. Amber Lane entered Roberts' life far from studio lights. An entrepreneur and wellness professional, Lane built her career independently, focusing on massage therapy and later launching a small business centered on health and recovery. The two met on a blind date in 2005, arranged by mutual friends. At the time, neither sought publicity, and their relationship grew slowly, rooted in compatibility rather than convenience. From the beginning, they understood the imbalance fame can create and made intentional choices to protect their private world. Their bond was tested publicly in 2007 when Roberts was diagnosed with breast cancer. Lane became a constant presence during surgery, chemotherapy, and recovery, remaining firmly outside the media narrative while providing daily emotional and physical support. Just as life began returning to normal, a second crisis emerged. In 2012, Roberts was diagnosed with myelodysplastic syndrome (MDS), a rare and potentially fatal blood disorder linked to prior cancer treatment. She underwent a bone marrow transplant in 2013, a process that required months of isolation and uncertainty. It was during this period that Roberts publicly acknowledged Lane for the first time, thanking her in a heartfelt social media post. The moment marked Roberts's quiet coming out not through an interview or announcement, but through gratitude. Is real courage shown more in public declarations or in who stays beside you when no one is watching? Since then, the couple has remained together for nearly 2 decades, celebrating milestones without turning their relationship into a brand. Lane has consistently chosen distance from fame, while Roberts has continued her broadcasting career with renewed perspective, returning to GMA and remaining one of its most respected anchors. What makes Robin Roberts and Amber Lane's story surprising is not that they are a lesbian couple, but that their love endured through illness, uncertainty, and silence. In an industry that often rewards exposure, they proved that longevity, discretion, and devotion can be just as powerful, especially when the cameras are turned off. Queen Latifah and Ebony Nichols. Queen Latifah and Ebony Nichols embody a form of Hollywood partnership that has grown increasingly rare, influential, enduring, and intentionally understated. Latifah, born Dana Owens, rose from New Jersey's hip-hop scene to become one of the most versatile entertainers of her generation. By the late 1990s, she had already earned a Grammy Award, led box office hits, and redefined what mainstream success could look like for a black woman who refused narrow roles. Her later achievements, including an Academy Award nomination and long-running television success, confirmed a career built on adaptability rather than controversy. Ebony Nichols entered Latifah's world through movement, not media. A classically trained dancer and choreographer, Nichols worked at the highest professional levels, including major television productions and live performance. Her career emphasized precision, discipline, and collaboration values that mirrored Latifah's own approach to longevity. Unlike celebrity partners drawn into the spotlight, Nichols maintained a professional identity rooted in craft, choosing to let the work speak for itself. Their relationship became known not through announcements or interviews, but through consistency over time. For years, Latifah guarded her private life, even as public curiosity intensified. That discretion was deliberate. In an industry that often pressures artists to commodify intimacy, Latifah chose boundaries. When it became publicly acknowledged that she and Nichols were partners, it was already clear they had built a stable life away from cameras. In 2019, the couple welcomed a son, marking a significant personal milestone without altering their approach to privacy. What makes their story particularly striking is how it contrasts with Latifah's public evolution. She has long spoken about self-acceptance and dignity, yet resisted labeling her personal life on demand. That choice resonated with many older viewers who remember eras when visibility carried professional risk, especially for black performers navigating multiple layers of expectation. Professionally, neither woman slowed down. Latifah continued leading major projects, expanding her influence as a producer and star, while Nichols remained active in choreography and creative direction. Their partnership never became a distraction from achievement. Instead, it quietly reinforced it. Colleagues often describe Latifah's later career years as focused and grounded, qualities frequently associated with stability at home. Queen Latifah and Ebony Nichols did not redefine Hollywood love by challenging the spotlight. They did it by refusing to center it. Their relationship stands as a reminder that authenticity doesn't always announce itself, and that sometimes the most powerful statement is living fully without asking permission. Amandla Stenberg and Lene Five. Amandla Stenberg and Lene Five represent a distinctly modern chapter in Hollywood's evolving understanding of identity, love, and visibility. Unlike earlier generations who were often pressured into silence, this couple emerged at a cultural crossroads where artistry, activism, and queerness increasingly intersected. Stenberg first entered the public consciousness as a teenager, gaining international recognition in the Hunger Games 2012, before deliberately steering her career toward projects that reflected complexity rather than commercial safety. As she matured, Stenberg became equally known for her outspoken advocacy on race, gender, and sexuality, positioning herself as both a performer and a cultural commentator. Lenai V. born Lenai Victoria, approached the spotlight from a musical angle. A singer-songwriter with roots in soul, R&B, and indie pop, she built her following through introspective lyrics and an understated visual style that contrasted sharply with mainstream pop formulas. Her music often explored emotional vulnerability, intimacy, and self-definition themes that resonated with listeners seeking authenticity rather than spectacle. Unlike traditional celebrity trajectories, Lenai V's rise was gradual, grounded in artistry instead of aggressive promotion. Their relationship became public around 2018, surprising some observers not because it existed, but because of how naturally it fit both women's creative worlds. There were no dramatic announcements or exclusive interviews. Instead, the couple appeared together at select public events and on social media in ways that felt deliberate and unforced. For Stenberg, who has openly identified as queer and non-binary, the relationship aligned seamlessly with values she had already articulated. For Lenai V, it offered visibility without demanding reinvention. What made their partnership particularly striking was generational contrast. Older audiences accustomed to Hollywood secrecy watched a young black couple live openly without framing their love as rebellion. Their appearance, fashion-forward, fluid, and unapologetically modern, challenged outdated ideas of what a Hollywood couple should look like. Do you think younger generations experience more freedom in love, or simply face different kinds of pressure? Professionally, both women continued evolving independently. Stenberg pursued roles in film, television, and music while maintaining a strong presence in social discourse. Lenai V expanded her musical catalog, refining a sound that favored emotional depth over chart chasing. Neither reduced their identity to relationship status, and neither relied on the other's fame for relevance. Ultimately, Amandla Stenberg and Lenai V didn't just represent young love in Hollywood, they embodied a shift. Their relationship reflected a future where black queer women are not forced to choose between authenticity and ambition. The surprise was never who they loved, but how confidently they did so without apology, performance, or retreat. Dabrat and Jessica Dupart. Dabrat and Jessica Dupart represent one of the most unexpected yet culturally impactful love stories in black entertainment precisely because it unfolded in a space long defined by rigid expectations. Dabrat, born Shantae Harris, made history early. In 1994, her debut album, Functified, became the first platinum-selling solo rap album by a female artist, cementing her status in hip-hop at a time when the genre was overwhelmingly male and unforgiving. For decades, she remained a recognizable voice and personality in music, radio, and television while keeping her personal life deliberately private. Jessica Dupart entered the public eye from an entirely different direction. A self-made entrepreneur, she built Kaleidoscope hair products from a small business into a multi-million-dollar beauty brand, gaining national attention through social media and business features. Unlike traditional celebrity partners, Dupart's influence came from ownership, branding, and leadership rather than performance. Her success story resonated strongly with black audiences, particularly women who saw entrepreneurship as a path to independence. The two met through overlapping social circles, but their connection deepened during a period of personal transition for Dabrat. In 2020, she publicly came out in an emotional message crediting Dupart with giving her the courage to live honestly after years of silence. The announcement was significant, not just personally, but culturally. Hip-hop had rarely made room for openly lesbian women, especially those from earlier generations. In February 2022, Dabrat and Dupart married in an intimate ceremony blending music, family, and faith. Their relationship soon entered another historic chapter. After facing fertility challenges, Dupart carried their child, and in July 2023, they welcomed a son. The journey was shared openly, but with intention focused on education and honesty rather than sensationalism. For many viewers, especially older audiences, it was the first time they saw a hip-hop pioneer openly embrace marriage and motherhood in this way. Professionally, neither slowed down. Dupart continued working in media and reality television, while Dupart expanded her brand portfolio and visibility as a business leader. Together, they balanced public openness with personal boundaries, refusing to reduce their marriage to headlines alone. What makes Dupart and Jessica Dupart's story surprising isn't the revelation of love, it's the transformation of narrative. They proved that reinvention is possible at any stage, and that authenticity, even when delayed, can still rewrite history. Angelica Ross and Corey Ray. Angelica Ross and Corey Ray represent one of the most meaningful expansions of visibility in contemporary Hollywood, not through controversy, but through presence. Their relationship carried cultural weight because it existed at the intersection of Black identity, transgender visibility, and creative independence areas long marginalized or misrepresented in mainstream entertainment. Ross, born in Wisconsin, built her career through persistence rather than privilege. Before appearing on screen, she founded TransTech Social Enterprises, a nonprofit organization dedicated to creating career pathways for transgender people in technology and media. Her later casting in Pose 2018-2021 and American Horror Story marked a breakthrough, making her one of the few Black trans women to hold leading roles on major television franchises. Corey Ray entered public awareness through fashion and entrepreneurship rather than scripted media. As a model and wellness-focused creative, Ray cultivated a presence centered on self-worth, body confidence, and emotional healing. Her work often emphasized balance and intention, a contrast to Hollywood's relentless pace. Unlike many celebrity partners, Ray did not orbit Ross's fame. She maintained her own identity, voice, and platform, choosing collaboration over dependency. Their relationship became publicly known around 2020, during a period when Ross's visibility was rapidly increasing. Rather than positioning themselves as symbols, they shared moments of their life with deliberation, highlighting affection, mutual respect, and everyday partnership without turning intimacy into spectacle. For older audiences accustomed to either secrecy or sensationalism, this approach felt notably different. Does true representation require visibility, or does it require stability over time? What made their partnership particularly significant was context. For decades, Black trans women were either erased or reduced to cautionary narratives. Ross and Ray disrupted that pattern by presenting a relationship grounded in joy, health, and shared ambition. They openly discussed mental wellness boundaries and self-care topics rarely associated with Hollywood romance, especially involving marginalized identities. Professionally, Ross continued expanding her influence beyond acting, speaking openly about industry accountability and equitable access. Ray, meanwhile, focused on entrepreneurial and creative projects aligned with wellness and empowerment. Their paths remained distinct yet supportive, demonstrating that partnership does not require sacrifice of individuality. Although their relationship later came to an end, its impact remained intact. There was no public conflict, no manufactured drama, and no reputational fallout. The ending, like the relationship itself, was handled with maturity and restraint. Angelica Ross and Corey Ray's story is surprising, not because it challenged norms loudly, but because it existed at all, calm, dignified, and visible in a space that once denied such possibilities. Their relationship showed that progress doesn't always arrive through confrontation. Sometimes it arrives simply by living well and being seen doing so. Michelle Ndegeocello and Rebecca Walker. Michelle Ndegeocello and Rebecca Walker formed a partnership that stood apart from Hollywood's traditional definitions of celebrity romance, rooted more in ideas than in image. Ndegeocello emerged in the early 1990s as one of the most musically sophisticated voices of her generation. A virtuoso bassist, producer, and songwriter, she released Plantation Lullabies in 1993, an album that blended funk, jazz, soul, and social critique with remarkable technical depth. Across multiple Grammy nominations and decades of work, she built a career that resisted easy categorization, prioritizing musical integrity over commercial conformity. Rebecca Walker came from an equally formidable intellectual lineage. As an author, poet, and activist, and the daughter of Pulitzer Prize-winning writer Alice Walker, she carved out her own space in American cultural discourse. Her writing explored feminism, race, spirituality, and identity, often challenging rigid ideological boundaries. Walker's voice resonated strongly in academic and activist circles during the 1990s, a period when conversations about intersectionality were gaining momentum but had not yet entered the mainstream. Their relationship emerged during that same era at a time when Black queer partnerships were rarely visible outside narrow cultural spaces. Rather than unfolding on red carpets, their connection existed within overlapping worlds of art, literature, and political thought. They were often seen at readings, performances, and community events, places where influence is built quietly and sustained through dialogue rather than publicity. Neither woman sought to frame the relationship as a statement, yet its existence carried weight simply by being lived openly within their respective circles. What made their partnership distinctive was its emphasis on mutual expansion. Ndege Ochelo's music during this period continued to push boundaries while Walker's essays and books interrogated evolving definitions of self and society. Their bond reflected a meeting of disciplines, sound and language, rhythm and reflection. Unlike many Hollywood couples, their relationship was never commodified. There were no branding opportunities, no strategic interviews, and no attempts to translate intimacy into visibility. When their partnership eventually concluded, it did so without scandal or narrative revisionism. Both women continued their work independently, maintaining respect for one another's contributions and trajectories. The surprise in Michelle Ndege Ochelo's and Rebecca Walker's story lies in how easily it defies spectacle. At a time when Black queer love was often ignored or simplified, they demonstrated another possibility, a relationship grounded in thought, creativity, and shared values. Their partnership reminded audiences, especially those who lived through the cultural shifts of the 1990s, that influence does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it endures through ideas and through the quiet confidence of two people choosing depth over display. Monica Carter and Terese Owens. Monica Carter and Terese Owens built a relationship that stood at the crossroads of music, media, and faith, unfolding far from Hollywood's usual red carpet formulas. Monica rose to prominence in the mid-1990s as a powerful R&B vocalist, earning widespread recognition with hits like Don't Take It Personal, Just One of Dem Days in 1998, which reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. Her voice, blending vulnerability with strength, resonated with audiences navigating love, disappointment, and resilience. Yet behind her success, Monica was living with a private tension common to many artists of her era, balancing career longevity with personal truth in an industry that rarely welcomed openness. Terese Owens approached visibility from an entirely different angle. Known as an entertainment blogger and digital media personality, Owens built a following by blending celebrity commentary with humor and sharp observation. His work existed outside traditional Hollywood structures, relying instead on online platforms and direct engagement. Unlike performers whose careers depend on public approval, Owens's influence came from conversation and commentary, giving him a unique vantage point on fame without being consumed by it. Their relationship became public in the early 2010s, surprising many who associated Monica exclusively with her earlier musical image. Rather than staging a reveal, the couple chose honesty without dramatization. In 2014, Monica publicly acknowledged her sexuality and her partnership with Owens, framing the moment through spirituality and self-acceptance rather than confrontation. The announcement reframed her narrative, especially for longtime fans who had grown up with her music. Why do you think faith and sexuality are still portrayed as incompatible in public conversations? That same year, the couple welcomed a son, grounding their partnership in parenthood and responsibility rather than celebrity spectacle. Family became central to their public identity, offering a representation rarely seen in entertainment coverage. A Black lesbian household defined by stability, belief, and everyday life. Monifa spoke openly about reconciling her faith with her identity, a conversation that resonated strongly with older audiences raised in religious communities. Professionally, Monifa continued performing and advocating while Owens maintained his presence in digital media. Their roles remained distinct but complementary: music and message art and analysis. The relationship did not depend on constant exposure, nor did it attempt to reshape Monifa's past. Instead, it expanded her story, adding dimension rather than contradiction. What makes Monifa Carter and Therese Owens' partnership surprising is its refusal to conform. At a time when narratives often demanded either secrecy or spectacle, they chose grounding. Their story offered a reminder that authenticity does not always arrive through rebellion. Sometimes it arrives through family faith and the courage to live truthfully after the applause fades. These stories remind us that Black lesbian love in Hollywood was never absent. It was simply overlooked, misunderstood, or intentionally kept quiet. From quiet power couples to late-in-life awakenings, these women reshaped success without asking permission, proving that authenticity does not weaken legacy, it deepens it. Yet a difficult question remains. If so many of these relationships thrived in privacy, did Hollywood truly change, or did these women succeed, despite the industry, not because of it? In today's spotlight-driven culture, is visibility a form of freedom, or just a new kind of pressure? At Legends of Black Excellence, we ask you which path builds a stronger legacy, being seen or being unshakably real.